Hi, it's Martha. I'm going to show you this short presentation with some samples on Mason stain and underglaze. The first thing I'm going to show you is this chart, which I actually am going to be going over with you in a few minutes after this slideshow. We'll go over this in much more detail. But what I'm going to be addressing is that underglazes have no glass in them. They're pure pigments and they're sandwiched between two layers of enamel. So the underglazes that we're going to be working with in this series of workshops are Mason stain Amaco underglaze pencils, possibly the crayons, the pan watercolors, the ceramic pigments or oxides, and underglaze D or P3. Those are mostly dry pigments, although some of the things like watercolors and P3 can come with an oil base as well. But for the dry materials, you can use either water-based medium to apply these materials, or you can use oil-based media. And there are various ways to apply these things, and many of these things are going to be covered. Some of these things are going to be covered in the upcoming workshop. So to move on, I just want you to know that all of these pieces that I'm going to show you are pieces in which various underglazes are used in various kinds of ways, and I'm going to point that out to you. Here are the underglaze materials. Up in the upper left-hand corner, the pan watercolors. They come in, I think, 3 or 4 sets. I find the set number 108 to be the most useful. It's got the best colors, except for white, which is useless. But I have replaced the white pan in my pan watercolor with a color that I really like and use a lot, which I think is in the set number 110, number 5. I don't know what the color is called, but I could figure that out. Anyway, you can buy the individual pans for these sets so that if you're using up one color, you can get more. And I think you can get those through the ceramic store. Anyway, if you just look that up, you'll find them. And moving to the right, this is a collection of Mason stains, and you can see that the color range is just incredible. What's covered up are the blues and the grays and the purples, and so there's quite a color range, and especially in the colors that are hard to get any other way, reds, yellows, oranges, the colors are just awesome. As you can see from the Amaco underglaze set, it's a much more vivid color. So these are all encapsulated or sandwiched between, the base coat enamel and a layer of flux on top. I use a lot of the old Underglaze D because I have, several bottles of it, which will last me forever. And it's exactly the same thing as P3, I believe. I mean, I'm not sure of the formula exactly, but it works exactly the same way. The little dragon there is an example of that, where I painted on the shape of the dragon and then I waited for that to dry. It was mixed with oil. I dried it thoroughly, and then I took some very sharp sgraffito tools and sgraffitoed all the little dots and lines, and some bigger tools to do the bigger outlines on the lion. So that was all just done with P3 and sgraffito tools. And on the bottom are what used to be called oxides, but now are called ceramic pigments by Thompson, Enamel. And these are very similar to Mason stains. My understanding is that they are a single earth element as opposed to Mason stains, which are mixtures of a number of elements each. So they have a very good range in the blues and the blue-greens and the browns. And they do have this one really killer yellow, 167. I use them when I need those particular colors. They have some really good ones. And moving to the left is now Underglaze Crayons, which is another Amaco product. And I don't use these very often, but you can see they have a nice color range, a fairly nice color range, and you can work them really hard into a very rough surface, and you can smudge them, you can add water and make watercolor out of them, you can take scrapings off the edges of the crayons with an X-Acto knife and make your own watercolor. They have some really nice colors. And then, of course, the Amaco Underglaze pencils. The only ones that are worth anything are the black, brown, blue, and green. The yellow on this sample is from another company, which I can talk about later. So these are the tools for underglazes. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. This is a piece that was from the 1980s. You can see I'm still using cloisonne wire here. But I got introduced to underglazes by Bill Hellwig at a workshop in Penland. And he showed me the ceramic oxides and the pencils, which were fantastic. So I was very taken with these. It meant so much to me because I wanted to draw and paint with enamel, and you know how hard that can be. So this freed me up very much. And here's a detail of that. So you can see the feathers were particularly nice on this piece. I came to really rely on them for many things. Moving way fast forward in time, this is a series I started in 2009 and worked on for many years. This piece has many examples of underglaze. Underglaze pencils on the face of the puppet and the figure in the middle, the central there, is all a lot of underglaze pencil work on top of an opaque dark red, and so on. And the pen and ink work in the back on the little strips with the batik patterns is all done with underglaze and pen and ink mixed with oils to make a pen and ink mixture. This is a particularly lavish with underglaze piece. I've done so many techniques on here, but a lot of drawing, a lot of painting. The whole thing is just a whole mix of these kinds of things. This is a good example right here. You can see on the hand of the puppet and on the arms and on the shell that he's holding. Those are all done with underglaze pencils. The basket body on the puppet is done with underglaze pencils and then accentuated with black overglaze. And all the texture on the bamboo parts are done with underglazes. And all the painting behind him is all done with mason stain of at various levels. This is a piece where I wanted to replicate the texture of an ikat fabric on the figure. So I, on a white base coat, I painted on these colors, and then I was able to run and dried them and was able to run a sgraffito tool through them to give the impression of threads. And then I put a coat of clear flux on top of that, and then proceeded to etch that, and then was able to use the underglaze pencil to do all the detail work on the face, and all the shading on the figure was done that way. The red in the background piece, the gold piece, all that is pen and ink and brushwork. The red spirals is all done with red mason stain. And the same with the background, all done with underglazes. This piece, again, is another kind of tour de force of underglazing. Pencil work, lots and lots of mason stain. I learned how to, through Coral Schaefer, who used to have enamel work supply, I learned how to make mason stain into an overglaze, so like a painting enamel. So all that background work on that kind of gold camel color is all mason stain mixed with a painting flux. This is just an example of pen and ink work on the hand. And this is another piece from that earlier series, and you can see the head of the figure, which has appeared in 2 previous images, I think, that I showed, or at least one, Petruk. All that work is done with pencil. I love the pencil work. And again, a replication of the background, red floral images. So these are some of the ways in which I have used mason stain, and we will be exploring some of those very soon.